Yes. Today I'm going to be covering the junglers and trying to come up with a definitive ranking for how good they are and how good they're going to be in this upcoming split. So, much like the top laners, this is a points-based ranking system where I attempt to rank each position, in this case jungler, on the various factors that go into individual performance. Now for junglers, it's a bit different because it mostly just boils down to how well they use their time. Each second can be used for one of four things when you're a jungler. You can be farming, you can be counter jungling or taking objectives, you can be ganking, or you can just be walking around. And the better jungler you are, the more you're able to minimize your walk times, effectively analyze the state of the game to determine where you should go and what you should do, and play to your individual and as well as your team comp strengths, whether you're supposed to be farming or counter jungling or ganking, but usually in professional play, it's just about whether you should be spending your time counter jungling or whether you should spend your time ganking, because just farming isn't as good as professional play. That's another topic for another video. And finally, I scaled the final totals by 8/9 and rounded to the nearest 0.25 to balance the scores with those of the top winners, so it was more easy for you to compare who was ranking where if you want to compare the two lists. Okay, so moving on to the factors of my two lists. So, much like last time, I have a floor and ceiling, which is how well they match up versus other players at the position, assuming things like meta growth and attitude go poorly or well, and then I combine those into a base score. The factors are a bit different, so I still have style fit, which is how well the player's ideal style, in this case it's counter jungling and ganking, as opposed to the sort of support / carry resource focus thing of the solo lanes, fit into the ideal style of the team. And then the other thing is situational awareness, which is much like I said before, how well the player is able to analyze the state of the game to determine where they should go and what they should do. So for medium factors, I have just initiation skills, which is the exact same as top lanes, just how well they can force advantageous fights. And for small factors, I've split it up into carry ability and support ability. Carry ability is how well the player is able to get himself ahead through aggressive counter jungling and objective taking, and support ability is how well the player is able to get his team ahead through smart ganking and counter ganking. If you want an example, you can kind of boil it down to carry abilities like your traditional Lee Sin or like Graves style of play or Xin Zhao, and support ability is like your typical Gragas or Sejuani or Trundle style of play. So moving on to the actual list now, coming in at 10th, we have Santorin from FlyQuest at 2.5 points. His top 3 champions, and this is for the course of 2018, are Trundle at 5 and 2 with a 7.5 KDA, Jarvan at 2 and 5 with a 2.27 KDA, and Sejuani at 2 and 4 with a 3.08 KDA. So Santorin's a fairly versatile jungler. If you look over the champions he plays and the way he plays the game, he can fill most roles within a team, although he isn't really impressive on any of them individually. Ideally, he would look to play around top primarily and bot secondarily, just based off the people that are in FlyQuest lanes. But if his laners are struggling, then he could be fairly irrelevant. He could kind of find himself with nowhere to go and nothing to do. But if he can work on his initiation skills and find synergy with Viper in the top lane, he could certainly work his way up this list and perform much better. So I gave him the 8th highest ceiling, the 8th highest floor, the lowest ceiling for a base score of 2. I gave him a style fit of 0, a situational awareness of 0.5, initiation skills and carry ability of 0, and a support ability of 0.25. Extra 0 for a total of 2.5. So not really any weaknesses, but not a lot of strengths either. Moving on to number 9, we have Lyra at 4.5 points. Lyra's top 3 champions in 2018 were Skarner with 7 wins and 3 losses and a 3.75 KDA, Sejuani with 2 wins and 7 losses and a 1.81 KDA, and Trundle with 2 wins, 4 losses, and a 1.75 KDA. So as most people know, Lyra is an early game and gank-heavy jungler. He should definitely benefit from having a strong laner like Huni on his team, though after that, it's not as optimal as it could be. Lyra has always shown incredible game awareness that has helped give his team consistent leads, but his weak team play and lack of initiation skills are going to prove a tough obstacle for Lyra to overcome, especially when the lack of interest in a similar style of Rainover shows that teams are moving away from junglers like Lyra. So Rainover was similarly a sort of early game focused, gank heavy jungler who struggled with initiations and team fighting late game. And his stock has fallen dramatically over the past couple years, as has Lyra's. So I see Lyra more as an older style jungler who's not going to go up. It is more just going to go down over time. But it'll be interesting to see if he can fight that stereotype. I expect Lyra to almost exclusively play gank-heavy junglers like Skarner, Zac, and Elise. So I gave Lyra the second lowest floor and the second lowest ceiling for a base score of 2. I gave him a style fit of 1, a situational awareness of 1.5, initiation skills of 0, carry ability of negative 0.25, and a support ability of 0.75, with no extra for a total of 4.5. Moving on to 8th place, we have Contracts coming in at 4.75 points. His top 3 champions in 2018 were Nocturne at 0-4 with a 1.06 KDA, Kindred at 2-1 on a 3.1 KDA, and Graves at 1-2 with a 2.67 KDA. Now those numbers are obviously quite low, they don't look very good, but remember he was on the bottom team both splits last year. So he tried a lot of different stuff, most of it didn't work well. He's one of the few junglers in North America who prefers a carry style. Contracts will probably struggle in a team like Golden Guardians that has no clear supportive players. They're mostly alt players who want to sort of take a leading role within the team, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that. Contracts has always been decently smart, though he could certainly improve some decisions in the game, such as his initiation skills and just the way he makes use of his time. Sometimes he decides to focus on the wrong lane, or like there are definitely better plays to be made. Look for Contracts to make use of his signature Kha'Zix along with similar champions like Elise and Graves if they come into the meta. Champions where he can be aggressive, where he can counter jungle, and he can also transition it into ganks and hopefully get himself snowballed. If he wants to become a top jungler in North America, he's going to have to find a way to combine his ideal style with some much improved initiation skills. So in total, I gave Contracts the 4th highest floor, the 7th highest ceiling for a base score of 5.5, a style fit of -1, situational awareness of 0.5, initiation skills of -0.5, carry ability of 0.5, and support ability of 0.25 with no extra for a total of 4.75. Moving on to 7th place, this is sort of the bottom of the middle tier junglers now, and we have Meteos at 6 points. His top 3 champions in 2018 were Trundle at 5-4 with a 3.22 KDA, Sejuani 4-3 with a 4.00 KDA, and Skarner at 3-3 with a 4.00 KDA. Now, Meteos is a much more supportive jungler than I think most people realize. The only farm-heavy jungler he found success on last year was Graves, and the rest were more gank-heavy and more team-fight-heavy. Meteos' success next year will rely heavily on his ability to play around his strong laners, due to his style being more focused around ganking and getting his laners ahead, which is something Optic doesn't really have outside of Crown, but if he can work with Crown, and if he can maybe find some synergy with Dokla, then he could certainly have some decent performances. His lack of effective decision-making compared to other support-heavy junglers is Meteos' biggest weakness. For somebody who's focused more around the other members of the team, he doesn't have the greatest sort of team-focused brain and macro idea of how to play the game. Despite straying away from farm-heavy junglers, Meteos has a much deeper champion pool than a lot of other junglers and should be able to play around that advantage. So most of the champions he plays are more gank-heavy, but if you look throughout his history, particularly in previous years, he can definitely play some other stuff, and he can also play pretty much any variety of champion in a supportive style, so he can definitely use that to his advantage. And I also felt like I had to add in that having a sub like Dardoch should definitely help Optic out as long as they can use him effectively, because he is also a good jungler, and if anything, I think he might be a slightly better jungler. So I decided to give Meteos the 3rd highest floor, the 8th highest ceiling for a base score of 5.5, a style fit of -0.5, situational awareness of 0, initiation skills of 0.5, carry ability of 0.25, support ability of 0.5, extra of 0.5 for having Dardoch on his team, which brought his total up to 6. That's good enough for 7th place. Moving on to 6th place, we have Rush at 6.75. His top 3 champions of 2018, though he didn't really play that many games, were Nocturne at 3-0 with a 2.38 KDA, Olaf at 1-2 with a 2.25 KDA, and Camille at 1-1 with a 3.00 KDA. As I said before, he didn't play much, but he still seemed to show his carry jungler tendencies, playing to his strong mechanics. This should be aided by Echo Fox's relatively low demand laners apart from Phoenix, which should allow Echo Fox and Rush to focus solely on getting him and Phoenix ahead, which should definitely help him out. Rush has always had mechanics in spades, but lacked when it came to macro decisions and his weak awareness and initiation abilities, which may hinder his ability to succeed in an era of more supportive junglers. It definitely could be a challenge, but if he can find a way to make his carry jungling work, I think he can certainly still be a great jungler. I expect Rush to use his strong champions like Lee Sin, Camille, and Nocturne and try to carry Echo Fox to wins. So I gave Rush the lowest floor of everybody, but the highest ceiling of everybody, which gave him a base score of 5.5. I gave him a style fit of a perfect 2, situational awareness of 0, initiation skills of -0.5. I gave him a carry ability of 1, but a support ability of -0.5. There was no extra, which brought his total to 6.75, which put him pretty solidly in the middle of the pack, but just below the first of the sort of train of young and up-and-coming junglers, and that is Onda from 100 Thieves. His top 3 champions are Sejuani at 6-4 with a 5.13 KDA, Graves at 3-2 with a 6.00 KDA, and Zac at 2-3 with a 3.33 KDA. He has one of the largest champion pools of any jungler in the North American LCS, and he prefers to play a jungler more focused around asserting jungle control and getting advantages over the enemy jungler. He had most of his success near the end of the year when he could play champions like Graves, Xin Zhao, and Taliyah. But he also is a decent supportive style jungler and can really play any type of jungler, as you can see by the fact that his most played jungler last year was Sejuani. He's a smart jungler who could certainly be a top tier jungler if he could improve his initiations and find synergy with the new 100 Thieves members that allows him to play to his strengths as a jungler. Their team is mostly a bunch of people who sort of want to be like the secondary carry, secondary driving force behind the team, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of sort out who's getting allocated what resources and where Anda ends up spending his time. So I gave him the 7th highest floor, the 6th highest ceiling for a base score of 4.5. I gave him a style fit of 1.5, a situational awareness of 1, initiation skills of 0.5, carry ability of 0.5, support ability of 0.25, and I gave him a 0.5 bonus because I feel like he's on his way up, and those scores are only going to get better over the course of the split. I don't exactly know what's going to improve, but I assume some of it is, so I gave him a bonus of 0.5 for a total of 7.75, which puts him in at number 3, just slightly below, so number 5, just slightly below number 4, which is Greg at 8 points. So Greg's top 3 champions of 2018 were Sejuani with 9 wins, 6 losses, and a 3.72 KDA, Trundle with 5 wins, 7 losses, and a 4.53 KDA, and his Gragas, which was an astounding 7-0 with an 11.29 KDA. He's a classic team-first jungler. He's at his best when he's able to use his time to get his laners snowballed. I think in TSM you can expect him to be focusing top lane or mid lane. I'd say top lane primarily, and mid lane depending on what Bjergsen is playing. He could struggle if his lanes fall behind in tempo, which definitely happened in 2018, and I think was part of the reason for a lot of TSM's struggles, as he's not as versatile in his game strategy as some of the other top junglers. A lot of his success will rely on him coordinating with Smoothie and initiations, as they have the potential to use strong initiations to swing close games their way. I think Greg is a very good supportive style jungler. I think he's a very good initiator, and so if TSM can play out those strengths, I think he can be a pretty amazing jungler. I gave him the 6th highest floor, the 5th highest ceiling for a base score of 5.5. I gave him a style fit of 1, a situational awareness of 0.5, initiation skills of 1, carry ability of 0, support ability of 0.75, and an extra bonus of 0.25 for the fact that I also think he's rising and up and coming, much like Onda, for a total of 8 points, which puts him in at 4th. That's sort of the top of the middle tier junglers, and now coming in as the bottom of the top tier junglers at number 3 with 11 points is Wiggly from Counterlogic Gaming. His top 3 champions last year were Trundle at 8-0 with a 9.6 KDA. So much like Greg, he had a signature champion he did exceptionally well on last year. Gragas at 4-4 with a 4.88 KDA. And Graves at 3-4 with a 3.77 KDA. And interesting to note that even though he played the spring split on Cloud9's Academy team, all the games he played on all 3 of these champs, which were his most played champions in 2018, happened with CLG. He didn't play any of these 3 champions on Cloud9 in the spring split. He was a very promising team first jungler last year who prefers to play around strong lanes, but he also has the ability to carry games if called upon, which is very rare, especially in North America, to find a jungler who is more gank focused, is more support focused, but can also carry the games. It's extremely valuable to have a versatile jungler, and I definitely think Wiggly is that. He should do very well on CLG, but if Darshan is struggling and they are playing against another strong top jungle duo, then Wiggly's ability to shine could be limited. If they end up against someone like Cloud9 or like Team Liquid, who has strong jungle and top, and Darshan's falling behind and losing tempo, I think that could definitely cloud a lot of Wiggly's abilities to make plays around the map. But I trust his ability to adapt, and I think he'd still be pretty useful. He reminds me a lot of an Smithy 2.0 in the way he views the game and is able to squeeze more out of the advantages given to him than most other junglers, which would translate to some solid initiations as well once he gets on the same page as the rest of the team. I think, it's not just that he happens to be on CLG, but I think that he reminds me a lot of a sort of up-and-coming Smithy, but actually with slightly more depth, with the ability to carry that wasn't really there for Smithy, and so I really see a lot in this guy. I think he he perhaps got more points on my ranking than he deserved just due to the way that I made it, but I think he's still a very good jungler. I gave him the 5th highest floor, the 2nd highest ceiling, for a base score of 7.5. I gave him a 1 for style fit, a 1.5 for situational awareness, 1 for initiation skills, 0.25 for carry ability, 0.75 for support ability, and much like Onda, I gave him a 0.5 due to the fact that he's an up-and-coming rookie who I think skills will only improve over time, to give him a total of 11 points, which is good for 3rd, but not good for 2nd, which is Svenskeren at 12.5 points. His top 3 champions in 2018 was Sejuani with 8 wins and 5 losses for a 3.75 KDA. Gragas with 7 wins and 2 losses for a 5.24 KDA. And Graves at 5 wins and 1 loss for a 6.89 KDA. So those are all some pretty impressive numbers. He's a very versatile jungler who likes to play with strong solos. He should fit very well with Licorice, as we already saw last year. And even if he doesn't click with Nisqy, he has proven synergy with Golden Glue, so I think he should definitely be able to succeed this year, regardless of how Nisqy fits into the team. His strong mechanics and years of professional experience not only allow Svenskeren to make smart decisions at every stage of the game, but also give him the versatility to succeed on any style of jungler in the game. So he mostly in the past was a control. He liked to play the Lee Sin. He liked to play the sort of invade style junglers. But in 2018 he really focused a lot on the more ganking style junglers. I think he's one of the more versatile junglers in the game. And having Blabber as a sub, along with the fact that C9 has a pretty good track record of utilizing substitutes, should only be a bonus. So I gave him the 2nd highest floor, the 3rd highest ceiling for a base score of 8.5. I gave him 1.5 for style fit, 1 for situational awareness, 1 for initiation skills, 0.75 for carry ability, 0.5 for support ability, and I gave them a 0.75 boost, which brought his total to 12.5, which is about as good as it gets, but it's not as good as it gets, because coming in at number 1 is none other than the obvious Smithy with 13 points. His top 3 champions of 2018 was Sejuani with 11 wins and 6 losses for a 4.58 KDA, Trundle with 8 wins and 5 losses for a 6.84 KDA, and Gragas with 6 wins and 7 losses for a 3.04 KDA. He has a team-first style, which fits very well with Team Liquid's strong laners. Gives him lots of options of places to gank and things to do, and I trust his ability to make strong use of that. His strong game knowledge allows him to read the state of the game very well and allow for great awareness and initiation skills, so he's able to see sort of what the optimal play is and where he should be spending his time, which allows him to make the best use of strong laners, and also translates into very good initiation skills and macro ability. He tends to stay away from strong jungle control champions like Lee Sin, Xin Zhao, and Nidalee, especially in recent years, but his ability to utilize strong ganking champions more than makes up for it. So he's a little bit one-dimensional, but he's not like he can't do that stuff, and he's very good at the one dimension he plays. And it's also more indicative of, like I put down here, the gold standard of what North American teams look for in a jungler. It's really the way people are transitioning into the type of jungler they like to have on their teams. So I gave Xmithie the highest floor, the 4th highest ceiling for a base score of 8.5. I gave him the full 2 points for style fit, the full 2 points for situational awareness, the full 1.5 points for initiation skills. I gave him negative 0.25 points for carry ability, but the full point for support ability. I didn't give him any extra bonus, which brought his total to 13 points, earned him the first place title. And congratulations, Xmithie, on being the dragon-defined best jungler in the North American LCS coming into 2019. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode where I break down the mid laners. I hope you all had a good time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.